I grew up in a charming 3-bedroom, 2-bath home on 10 acres in the country. Outside in our beautiful garden, Dad pruned his prized wisteria trees, and Mom fussed over flower beds full of Shasta daisies. Inside, Mom made our home warm and inviting. My sister and I felt like princesses in the room we shared, with its canopy beds and matching bedspreads. My favorite room, though, was the kitchen, with its lavender flower wallpaper and matching curtains. Dad kept our garage perfectly organized, and I loved to sit and watch him work with his power tools. I can still smell the fresh-cut wood from the table saw. My parents were popular. We went on picnics, threw neighborhood parties, and played family card games with friends. My parents attended PTA meetings. Dad took me to my school's father-daughter banquet, and they both often helped friends with projects like wallpapering or building a fence. Friends and neighbors thought that my sister and I were lucky to be children of such fun-loving parents. Ours was a storybook home, and our family seemed picture-perfect. But as the saying goes, all that glitters is not gold. Despite how things looked from the outside, my parents had a loveless marriage. I don't remember them ever speaking pleasantly to each other. In fact, as I think back on those years before I was 12, I can't recall them ever speaking to each other in public. Even at a card table, they always addressed other people cheerfully but never interact with each other. My parents were also totally unpredictable. When I got off of the school bus and walked into the house, I never knew what was going to happen. One typical evening remains in my memory. Mom had brought home my favorite dinner from Kentucky Fried Chicken. As we sat around the dinner table in our comfortable cushioned chairs, I eagerly waited for her to dish up our plates. My anticipation turned to agony when Dad saw the 3-bean salad on his plate.
Why did you buy this
He snapped at Mom, shoving plate to the center of the table. Mom replied that she thought he liked it. The argument escalated from there until Mom yelled, "Just throw it away if you don't like it!" Dad stormed over to the garbage disposal and threw it down the sink. The disposal ground up any hope that we would enjoy a pleasant dinner. I know that my parents must have had violent fights when my sister and I went to bed. Many times we'd awake to shattered windows, damaged walls, and broken furniture. Occasionally, Mom had cuts and bruises. I don't know at what age I tuned out the sound of their fights, but I do know that for as long as I can remember, at night I had a loud box fan blowing at the foot of my bed, even though we had air conditioning. My parents separated frequently, and when they did, we stayed with my mom's folks. I loved it there. The unpredictability of my life at home had made me fragile and insecure, and Mama and Papa's home was a refuge for me. Mama worked at a bakery and always had lots of fresh-baked cookies, cakes, and sweet rolls in her kitchen. When I spent the night at their house, I often slept close beside Papa, wrapped up in his strong arms under a handmade quilt. I remember Mama telling me that one night when Mom, my sister, and I were sleeping, Dad came over crying hysterically and pleaded with Papa to go with him to our home, which was about 10 minutes away. Dad had blood on his hands and shirt.
You've got to come with me.
He begged.
I've done something to Marie and the girls.
Jean,
Papa said,
Marie and the girls are here sleeping. You haven't done anything to them.
Unable to console Dad, Papa went with him to the house to prove that everything was okay. But what they found was massive destruction. Every piece of glass in the kitchen had been broken. When Dad snapped out of it, he couldn't believe what he had done. Eventually, we moved back home and Mom and Dad tried again, only to separate for good when I was 12. This time, Mom told my 11-year-old sister and me that she and Daddy were getting a divorce, and we moved back to my grandparents' home. Shortly thereafter, Dad called Mom and told her that he had set our house on fire. Mom didn't know if she should believe him, but just in case, she called Joy, one of her best friends who happened to live close by. Joy was pregnant with her 3rd child at the time. She joined Mom, my sister, and me, and we went to see if Dad's threats were true. The short drive to our house seemed like an eternity. When we arrived, the house was in flames, and we rushed to a neighbor's to call the fire department. As we were returning to my grandparents' house, we met Daddy on the road. What looked like a short gun was sticking out of the window on the driver's side of the car. Then things happened in a flash. Daddy ran us off the road, our car came to an abrupt stop, and a short gun blast shattered both of our side windows. Joy died instantly. My sister jumped out of the back seat and crouched on the ground between the car and the ditch. Just then, Daddy pulled over and leaned inside the car. Mom was slumped over, apparently unconscious. I was stuck in the back seat of the car. "Daddy, please, what are you doing?" I cried out to him. "Why are you doing this?"
I have to do this. I have to.
He said, more to himself than to me. He reached inside his car and pulled out a handgun. Then he put the gun under my mom's chin and pulled the trigger. An instant later, he seemed to return to reality. He looked at the destruction around him.
Oh my God.
He cried. Then he put the gun to his head and shot himself. Almost immediately, I heard the sirens. In a panic, I wrestled past the bodies of my mother and her friend, stumbled over the body of my daddy, and ran hysterically down the road toward the approaching fire truck. The next thing I remember is sitting in the police car with my arms around my sister, telling her I loved her. I asked the police officer to call my grandmother. I knew that she would come and get us and make everything all right, just like she always did. But almost as soon as that thought crossed my mind, I heard the police dispatcher say, "The grandmother has been shot." Just before we met Daddy on the road, he had gone to town to kill Mama. After he had shot at her several times, Mama slumped over the floor pretending to be dead. Convinced that she was dead, he finally left. Mama spent several weeks in intensive care. She lost her eyesight in one eye, but miraculously, she survived. She and Papa began the overwhelming task of raising two emotionally traumatized granddaughters. How did I survive such a life-shattering tragedy? For as long as I could remember, I had thought about creation. I would gaze out at the stars at night and think about how wonderful God must be to have created such beauty. One summer, 4 years before my dad drove down that road to destroy our world, our teenage babysitter had sent us to Vacation Bible School at a local church to get us one of her hair for a while. When the preacher spoke to that room full of children, it seemed as if he were speaking only to me. He said that Jesus loved me and wanted me to forgive all my sins. He explained that sin means doing things we know are wrong. Well, I had done plenty of that in my 8 years. The preacher explained that those things separated me from a perfect God who loved me so much that he wanted to be close to me and walk through everything with me, protecting me along the way. I knew I wanted to have him in my life. I talked to God right then in that crowded room. I prayed and gave my life to Jesus. That was the day I met God, the one who had created the stars and the moon I said goodnight to each night. That decision is what carried me through my devastating childhood. Even at the moment of my parents' tragic deaths, Jesus was right beside me. And his protection did not stop there. Jesus said that he would never leave me nor forsake me. And I have found that to be true at every stage of my life since that day at Vacation Bible School. Over the past years, God has granted me my childhood dream of a happy home on the outside and on the inside. He has blessed me with a wonderful husband and 3 children. By the grace of God, my children will never have to know what it's like to grow up in a tragically violent home. All that glitters may not be gold, but with Jesus, my life has become a precious gem.
The night's young, it has just begun. As she puts her hand in